Charlie Kirk's death report revealed the truth about his cause of death, and Candace Owens made a claim about the report, and something isn't lining up that I'm going to take you through. Also, Tucker Carlson spoke with Erica Kirk and dropped a clue about how she feels about the FBI investigation into the death of her husband. And finally, new polls show that there is a major divide on the right between young and old voters over support of Israel. And I bet you didn't know this, but if you do not commit to the unwavering support of this nation that has been blessed apparently by God, this means that you have a corrupt, degenerate, and satanic mind and you don't know the truth. We'll start there. I'm Zach Costello. After news broke that Israel and Hamas signed a President Trump-led peace deal, new polling released by CNN reveals an incredible divide on the right over the Israel issue. Young conservative support of Israel has absolutely tanked in comparison to older Republican voters. And it's not because they've been corrupted, are biblically illiterate, and are spiritually bankrupt as they've been accused of. Watch.
It's not just Democrats, though, in which we have seen a real shift of opinion. Even within the Republican ranks, this war has caused real division. What are we talking about? Well, we often talk about by age within the Democratic Party, but what about by age within the Republican ranks? Who Republicans sympathize more with? You see a massive, huge age divide. Those 50 and over, what we see amongst Republicans is they sympathize more with the Israelis by 66 points. But look at the voters under the age of 50. They do sympathize with the Israelis, but just by 25 points. We're talking about a 40-point difference, with the youngest Republicans being far more sympathetic to the Palestinian position than older Republicans are.
That's a huge gap right there. Let's just say that.
That is a huge gap, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the Republican Party adjusts going forward.
All right.
That last part, it is going to be very interesting to see how the Republican Party adjusts going forward. I said this yesterday, but the Israel question is going to be the major election issue going into the midterm and next presidential election. And support for Israel amongst young voters is going to continue to tank. This is going to get way worse, in fact, with the continual gaslighting and moral blackmail taking place against those who do not support the state of Israel. This is Brandon Tatum. And you know, I respect Brandon Tatum, but this is absurd. This is not truth, and this needs to stop. Otherwise, this division is going to significantly deepen.
You have really taken a stance, a really strong position. You're fighting back against the propaganda machine, the vilifying of the Jews, Israel. There's just so much out there. But what's lacking in all of this is the critical thinking, and you are doing all of that critical thinking. What made you go all in? Because it's not a popular stance.
Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the kind words. It's very simple to me. This stuff is biblical. What made me go all in is when I see foolery on television and I see propaganda spread across social media. And I've done this with, when it comes to policing, and people lie about what police do and don't do. And when I saw what was happening with the lies that are coming out of Gaza, it just made me angry. And I said, somebody has to stand up and have enough fortitude to say, I'm going to present the truth. I don't care who's mad at me. And like I said at the beginning of this statement, is that God says explicitly in the Bible what Christians shall do and how Christians shall view Israel and how we should support Israel. All of that is laid out. And until the Bible changes, then my stance on it will never change.
What do you think is the root of, dividing Christians and Jews? Now you're getting all those comments, the $7,000 memes, you're getting them, I'm getting them. I'm like, really? Really? We're getting paid the $7,000? I wouldn't be working, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on that check. That's all I know. So when they give me that $7,000 check, I probably smile. But the reality is, these people are just saying these things because they cannot combat the truth. They cannot argue or debate with what is out there as the truth. They have nothing but emotionalism and lies and propaganda to push. And I think it's a few angles here that create this type of mentality in people. And one is a spiritual battle. I think God has given a lot of people over to what we call a reprobate mind. He's given them over to their own lusts and their own devices. And therefore, they're falling off of a cliff. And you can see them very clearly. They start in one place, and now all of a sudden, they're the most deranged people on social media, period.
It is absurd to say, and it is a distorted interpretation of the Bible, that God demands us to support the state government of Israel. They are interchanging the Israel of the Bible, God's chosen people who were chosen so that God could come into the world in the human form of Jesus Christ, the Jewish Messiah, with the current national state government of Israel. I think Tatum is being sincere, and I think he takes his faith seriously. I'm not saying he doesn't, but his perspective is fundamentally flawed. The state government in Israel and the Jews living in Israel are not God's chosen people, biblically. They are, in fact, the lineage, biblically, of those who rejected the Jewish Messiah. They share in the line with those who persecuted and slaughtered the first Christians. As Christians, we are called to love and convert them as we always have been. But we are certainly not biblically obligated to support and defend the nation state that they want to operate within. Here's my thing. I've been, and kind of still am, neutral on the Israel question. Like, I had no problems. But what has caused a shift within me further away from any pro-Israel perspective that I might have had has been the behavior of Jewish and American Christians that make up the so-called Zionist lobby in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death. The manner in which they've lied, slandered, threatened, morally blackmailed, and are now gaslighting Christians like Brandon Tatum just did for questioning the authorities and the mainstream media narrative, or even posing the question that a foreign nation might be a suspect in the Charlie Kirk investigation, is such a turnoff. It's such a red flag. We can say China might have been involved. We can say the Democrats might have been involved through transgender militants and NGOs. But when we question, after discernment and observation, that maybe Israel might be a suspect, because Bibi Netanyahu said that social media is a weapon of modern warfare. He said he is outright paying American influencers to promote Israeli interests to win the propaganda war, which is critical for Israel's survival. And then 48 hours after the most influential conservative American voice says he and his company that just swung a U.S. presidential election were leaving the pro-Israel cause because of the behavior of Jewish donors, we're lying. We're morally and spiritually bankrupt. We're psychopaths who are possessed by Satan himself. Are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? No. You discerning this and thinking about these things, you're not. You're just not. And don't fall for the gaslighting or feel like God hates you for discerning the truth in good faith. The perspective that you are being morally blackmailed with is just so far away from common sense and discernment of truth. And when something is this off, that's a red flag for me. One of the individuals who has been slandered, lied about, morally blackmailed is Tucker Carlson. In fact, you might remember it was the Jewish donor withdrawing the $2 million from Turning Point USA because Tucker was speaking at TPUSA events that caused Charlie Kirk to send the message that he was leaving the pro-Israel cause in the text messages that were leaked. Here is Tucker being asked straight up, who killed Charlie Kirk? He mentions that he's been in contact and has been speaking with Erica Kirk. And I wonder if this is where that he's getting this deranged and spiritually bankrupt mindset from. Watch.
I love Charlie, and I talked to his wife this morning. I love his wife, Erika, and I don't want to make it worse. So the guy's in custody. It's a very weird story. I will also say, having been a police reporter and covered a lot of crimes, that all crimes are pretty weird. You know, the farther you dig, there are always anomalies, things that don't make sense, witnesses who saw something completely different. You know, just any human experience, if it has multiple vantage points, is hard to reconstruct. That said, you know, they're going to need to do a real investigation on this. And here's all I'll say. If the FBI and the authorities in Utah end this investigation by declaring Tyler Robinson a lone gunman with no accomplices whatsoever, without having done, you know, a truly exhaustive investigation, you know, sort of like the one they did into January 6th.
Right.
That will not be adequate. That will not be acceptable. And I think that they will risk further fracturing the United States along the lines of people who believe the story or want to believe the story and those who, you know, just don't find it an adequate explanation. So I hate even to say that that could happen. because, it's my country, my government. I want to trust the FBI. There's no reason to trust the FBI at all. At all. I mean, they've been caught acting in bad faith and conducting what I consider crimes so many times, lying so many times, that I think it's, at this point, especially since my friend who was assassinated, I think it's fair to demand a real investigation with a lot of transparency. And if they say, well, we can't say that because we don't want to prejudice the jury, or, it's going to affect the prosecution, that's not a good answer. Tell me what happened.
It is not a good answer. And after years and years of being lied to by our government, we need transparency as we were promised. The old way of doing these investigations is no longer acceptable because the authorities have lost trust from the American people. How many tragedies have we been through, left wanting for answers? We refused to be put through this again. And when it comes to Charlie Kirk, it's just not going to happen. Candace Owens is certainly willing to turn over every stone, discern every tip and theory, and burn every bridge to find out what happened to Charlie Kirk. And listen to what they've found from Charlie Kirk's death report that she put out yesterday. Watch this. The first half of this is true. The second part, we need to address.
Charlie's neck indeed did stop the bullet, without question. Okay, and this is going to dispel a lot of theories that are out there. And I'm telling you this 100%. Charlie Kirk was shot from the front, and the bullet did not exit. And at least a fragment of the bullet was recovered from his neck. And I'm going to tell you exactly where it was recovered from. I have fact-checked this information from multiple sources now. I've actually been sitting on this for a little bit over a week. Right around here. So think about almost in line with your shoulder blade, right in the center. Now, why is that helpful? Because it gives us a bullet trajectory, okay? We went in here where you saw that, and it was stopped, and a fragment was pulled from, think right, if you're just touching your spine, in line with your shoulder blade. That leads us, obviously, to the part that he's maybe not being forthcoming about. They did not recover a bullet from a .30-06. They didn't recover a bullet from a .30-06. It just didn't happen, okay? If they had found a .30-06 bullet, Charlie's death certificate certainly would have reflected that. In suicide situations, as just one example, medical examiners, feel free to chime in. I've spoken to quite a few. But when the gun and the bullet are known, they are reflected onto the death certificate, okay? There is not one reflected onto Charlie Kirk's death certificate because they did not recover a bullet from a .30-06. Hunters and military men rejoice. It turns out that common sense still rules the roost, okay? You guys were right. You were absolutely right. And this is why I hate politics, because it requires us to submit to the idea that we were all somehow born yesterday, that life really can just be a Marvel comic with people that are, I guess, a DC comic where there are men of steel that are able, because they're young, to stop 3,000 pounds of energy that is coming at them. That didn't happen. So where does that leave us, guys? Well, the part that is now extraordinarily suspicious is that Andrew is claiming that he had a conversation with the surgeon who offered up the idea that it really was just your modern Christian miracle, that Charlie was just young and his bones had a lot of density, which made him stronger somehow than a Cape Buffalo, enough push-ups and asparagus, and you too can stop 3,000 pounds of energy coming at you. What are we to make of that? What are we to make of the fact that Charlie did not do that, actually? It means that he was shot with a completely different kind of gun, obviously, okay?
This medical report, which has been confirmed by multiple sources, proves that Charlie was shot in the neck and the bullet lodged in his vertebrae. This aligns with the most solid evidence and arguments that I have shared, like the high-speed cavitation event that Charlie experienced from the bullet. There was a massive amount of expansion in his neck, chest, and back as he was shot, proving a high-speed rifle round. This is the effect of a high-speed rifle round entering the body. I also shared this angle on September 29th, almost 2 weeks ago, talking about this. This was from my video. Watch this. Nothing gory here. I stop it before that, but I want you to see this angle here. So as you can see, Charlie picks up the mic to address the question right before he's shot, and then you see that? You see that right there? It happens fast. It's slowed down and zoomed in though. You see what looks like a shock wave hit the front of Charlie's shirt right there, and then the back billows up. Here it is again and again. This looks to me like a bullet from the front going through his neck and into his back, which would correspond to the downward shot angle. The back of his shirt, maybe even his back blowing out. Like that could even be his spine or vertebrae. Don't judge me. Yes, I'm wearing the same thing, but my laundry has been done for me by my stay-at-home wife since then, okay? What this shows here, that angle right there, I feel like best shows that bullet taking his shirt back, entering through his neck, blowing out his back, and lodging in his vertebrae. But I'll say this, and this is where I disagree with Candace on her last point. It's not obvious that it wasn't shot with a 30-06. In that same video, I go on to then explain I have a friend who's an active duty Green Beret, multiple tours in hot zones. Let's just say he's used high-powered rifle rounds and seen what they do to the human body. He told me, depending on the grain of the bullet and some other factors that are involved with the gun and the rifle, the speed at which it's shot. I'm not a gun expert, but again, I'm talking to experts and discerning these different arguments. He told me that it's possible that depending on where it hit inside the body, that there is a chance that the bullet could not have exited even with a 30-06 round. It's not unheard of. So to say it's obviously not shot with a 30-06 and to say there's no way that the shooter was on the roof, I can't agree with that statement. I agree the case against Tyler Robinson acting alone and taking the shot needs to be proven to us without a doubt. But I don't think this definitely proves anything about Tyler Robinson as Candace Owens suggests here. I'll see you guys back here on Monday. Make sure to subscribe for my daily God First commentary on the political and cultural issues of our time to help us all remain in truth and on the path toward who God made us to be. I'm Zach Costello.